Get these filthy animals off my land right now. You are breaking the law. I will sue you for everything you own. The day I saw a stranger in a pink visor crawling through my pasture with a tape measure, I almost drove my truck into my own fence. I thought she was lost. Then I saw her clipboard. Then I saw her high heels sinking into mud like tiny, sad boats. And finally, I saw her measuring my grass like it was a crime scene. I jumped out of my truck and yelled, "Ma'am, what are you doing on my land?" She didn't even flinch. She stood up slow, wiped her hands on my grass like it was a napkin, and said, "I'm with the HOA." I blinked. The what? She sighed like I was the dumb one. The Homeowners Association. Your lot backs up to our community, so our standards apply. Your grass is over the maximum height. I looked around at my farm. My farm, with a barn, a hay shed, and 3 very curious bulls watching us like we were the free show before dinner. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so insane my brain needed a break. "Lady," I said, "this is a working farm. I grow hay. Hay is literally tall grass." She pointed her pen at me like a tiny sword. "It's unsightly, and it attracts pests. I am measuring to document the violation." I stepped closer. "You're trespassing." She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind that says, "I enjoy being a problem." "Oh, sweetie," she said. "We have an easement." I knew right then I was dealing with Brenda Sterling. A real, full-grown one. The kind who says words like easement and unsightly and thinks it makes her queen of the earth. I told her to leave, calmly. Once, she kept measuring. So I told her again, louder, "Get off my property." She snapped a photo of my grass. Then she snapped a photo of me, like I was the one who needed trimming. "Expect a fine," she said, and walked toward the gate like she owned it. That night, an official-looking letter showed up in my mailbox. Notice of violation. It had my name, my address, and a list of community standards like I lived in their little beige box neighborhood. The letter said I had 7 days to mow grass to acceptable length or pay daily fines. Daily fines, for hay. I called the number. Man answered like he was bored with being alive. I said, "I don't live in your HOA." He said, "Your property borders our community." The board voted. I said, "You can't vote on my farm." He said, "You can appeal at the next meeting." So I went. I walked into their clubhouse wearing clean jeans and boots because I wasn't trying to fight. I was trying to be reasonable. The room was full of quiet neighbors with tight faces. You could tell they were the kind of people who whispered, "Don't make eye contact when trouble walks in." And there she was. Pink visor, perfect hair, sitting in the front row like she was waiting for a crown. I explained the farm. I explained the hay. I even brought a printed map showing my property line. I said, "Your HOA has 0 power over me, and your board member trespassed." The board president, an older man with a golf shirt and a fake smile, tapped his little gavel like he was in court. He said, "We understand your concerns, but we value maintaining appearances." I stared at him. "My farm is not your appearance." Brenda raised her hand and said, "He's hostile." A woman on the board nodded like Brenda had just solved world hunger. "We don't want conflict." "Then why did you climb into my pasture?" "With a tape measure, ma'am." I looked around for support. Some neighbors avoided my eyes. One guy gave me a tiny shrug like, "Sorry, I need my pool." My appeal failed. They voted in under 10 seconds. Fine stays. Grass must be cut. I walked out, shaking. Not scared, angry. Because here's the thing. I'm not a loud person. I don't love drama. I just want to work my land, feed my animals, and sleep. But something about being bullied by a pink visor and heels did something to me. I went home and sat on my porch, staring at my pasture. The bulls were out there chewing like they paid rent. The wind moved through the hay, peaceful, normal. And then I remembered her words. "Oh, sweetie." I said it out loud, copying her voice. "Oh, sweetie." My eye twitched. That's when the revenge plan started forming. Not a violent plan, not anything crazy. Just a lesson. Because Brenda didn't respect fences, signs, or property lines. She respected attention, paperwork, being right in front of people. So I decided to give her exactly what she wanted. Documentation. 2 days later, I put up new signs along the fence line where my farm meets their HOA path. Big, bright, impossible to miss signs. Private property, no trespassing. Livestock area, do not enter. Then I called the county and asked about my property line and any real easements. The lady on the phone sounded amused. "Honey," she said, "there is no easement there, not even close." Good to know. Next, I called my cousin, who helps me with livestock sometimes. I told him I needed a favor. He said, "Is this about the visor lady?" Word travels fast in small towns. I said, "Yup." He laughed so hard, he snorted. I'm in. Saturday morning, I woke up early and parked my truck by the fence. I set up my phone on a tripod facing the gate. Not to be petty. Okay, maybe a little petty, but mostly for proof. Around 9:12 a.m., like she was on a schedule, Brenda showed up. Pink visor, clipboard, tape measure, and a fresh attitude. She opened the gate, my gate, like it was her fridge. I stepped out from behind my truck and said, "Ma'am, don't do it." She froze. Then she smirked. "I'm documenting your violation." I pointed at the signs. "You're trespassing." Again? She waved her hand like she was shooing a fly. "It's fine." And that's when my cousin, who had been quietly moving things behind the barn, swung open the side. 3 bulls walked out. Not running, not charging, just walking. Big shoulders, heavy steps, heads low, curious eyes. Brenda turned, saw them, and her whole face changed from manager of the universe to girl who forgot she's not on a sidewalk. She backed up fast. Her heels slipped in the mud. Clipboard flew out of her hands like a sad bird. 1 bull snorted. Another one stomped. The third one just stared at her like she was the weirdest thing he'd ever seen. Brenda squealed. Not a scream, a squeal, like a balloon being stepped on. She tried to run, but her foot got stuck. She yanked, lost balance, and went down hard in the wet grass she hated so much. Her visor popped off and landed upside down in the mud like a tiny pink boat. And the best part? 2 HOA neighbors were walking the path on the other side of the fence. They stopped. Their mouths dropped open. Then one of them pulled out a phone. Then another phone. Then another. Brenda crawled on her hands and knees. Trying to stand, slipping again. Grass stains on her white pants. Mud on her elbows. Hair coming loose. I didn't move. I didn't yell. I just stood there and said, calm as Sunday, "'Kay, you should leave." Now, she finally got her shoe free, grabbed her visor, sprinted to the gate like her life depended on it. She slammed it behind her and screamed, "You set me up." I smiled. "No, ma'am. You walked into a livestock area after reading 3 signs." She pulled out her phone and yelled, "I'm calling the police." "Please do," I said. And she did. 20 minutes later, a deputy showed up. He looked at the signs. He looked at the fence. He looked at Brenda, who was now sitting in the HOA path with mud on her knees and rage in her eyes. She started talking fast. He released bulls on purpose. He tried to scare me. He's dangerous. The deputy looked at me. I handed him printed papers from the county showing the property line and no easement. Then I showed him the video. In the video, you could clearly see Brenda opening the gate and walking past the signs like she was allergic to rules. The deputy's eyebrows went up. He turned to Brenda and said, "Ma'am, you're on private property." She huffed. "But the HOA?" He cut her off. "The HOA doesn't own this. You do not have permission. This is trespassing." Brenda's face went bright red. I was measuring grass. The deputy stared at her like she'd admitted to licking door handles. He said, "You measured his grass. On his farm. Without permission." Brenda tried to speak, but nothing came out. Just air and anger. The deputy asked if I wanted to press charges. I said, "I just want her to stop." He wrote her a warning anyway. And he told her, very clearly, "Do not come back here." By Monday, the video was everywhere in their neighborhood group chat. Someone titled it, "Visor Lady versus Bulls." People were laughing in the comments. One neighbor wrote, "Maybe she should measure her own attitude." Even better. A county inspector showed up later that week because Brenda tried to report me for unsafe animals. The inspector took one look, laughed, and said my farm was cleaner than most kitchens. Then the HOA board sent me another letter. Different tone this time. Very soft, very polite. Like they'd been slapped by reality. They said, "We have reviewed the jurisdictional boundaries and will no longer pursue enforcement." Translation: Brenda got them in trouble. And now they wanted to pretend they never met her. Brenda avoided the path for weeks. When she did show up, she walked on the far side like my grass might jump out and hurt her feelings. Neighbors started waving at me again. One guy even brought me cookies and said, "Sorry, we didn't speak up." She scares everyone. I nodded. I know, and now my hay grows tall. My bulls stay calm. And nobody measures anything on my land unless I ask them to. Please subscribe to Karen Conflict for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.